All right, welcome to the call, Empowered Leaders. We're 7 weeks into our Essentials series, and we're really digging in deep tonight with the follow-up. Now, one of the stats we hear all the time is that 80% of successful sales come after the 5th or more follow-up call. Okay, but so many people, this is so underutilized. Probably more feedback that I hear on any of the essentials is that people are not following up as many times as they need to, because really your follow-up should be unlimited. Okay, so it's really kind of cool because God has placed a lot of amazing trainings and podcasts in my life recently that have led to this series. So tonight is no exception. And some of you will recognize some of this content and others will get to experience it for the first time. But for the last 5 weeks, we've really been focusing on some common themes. And the main one is that if you do the basics at a high standard consistently, you will be successful. Okay, so you're just doing the basics, the essentials at a high standard consistently. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay, but learning those skills and putting those skills into action at a high standard is really the key to success. So I want to open up the chat here for a second, and I want this to be a little bit interactive. So go ahead and pull up in your chat real quick, and I want you to think about, why do people avoid the follow-up? So for you specifically, or people that you know on your team, why do you avoid the follow-up? What are you afraid of? What do you feel like you're avoiding? Throw it in the chat. All right, some stuff's coming through here. You don't want to bother people. Tierney and Lori both, yep. Possibility of rejection. I love that Lori and Tierney both said the same thing. They don't want to bother people. Being annoying. Okay. All right, you guys. So when you think about bothering people, you think about being annoying, or you think about being rejected. These are all things that are so negative. Okay? So, and I love that some of them are like almost exactly the same. That's awesome. Okay, so think about this though. Is it possible that we're allowing these ideas into our minds because we're so focused on not doing them that that's all we end up thinking about? We're so focused on not being rejected. Like, I got to say the right thing. I got to do the right thing so I won't be rejected. But we're focusing on it so much that we're putting that out there, and we are so paralyzed we don't even do it, or we do get rejected because our posture's funny, or we're putting out a weird vibe to people. And what about being annoying? We're so focused on not being annoying. Wouldn't you say that it's easier to be so, because that's what's on our mind? And the same with bothering people. We're so worried about bothering people that we either don't do it, or we actually bother people because that's what we're thinking about. Now, what if we shifted our focus? Now, what if we chose to tell ourselves that when we reach out to people, we're serving them? We're offering them a gift. We're offering them a solution. What if that was what's on the forefront of our mind? If we choose to think about those things, things will start to shift in how we could say the same exact thing to somebody. And I wish I had an example off the top of my head, but it might come to me in a little bit. But think about, like, if you say something to someone and in your head you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm totally going to bother them. But what if you have no idea their story, but what if right before you got a hold of them, they were talking to their husband about how disenchanted they feel with their body, and just how they wish they had a solution, and they've tried a million things and nothing's worked, and they wish there was something out there that actually worked? What if? And instead of you reaching out and offering this solution, this gift to them, you think, oh, I don't want to bother them. But you don't know that they just got done crying in the arms of their husband because they're so unhappy. You never know, okay? And you always have to go with the fact that I'm serving people. I'm offering a solution. That's where our mindset has to be. And think about it, by the very nature of people, so in the follow-up, the reason we're following up with people is because at some point they expressed interest. Even for something like, if they ask how much, oh, well, how much is it? And maybe that it kind of cuts off from there, and there's some follow-up that needs to happen later. But by the very nature of them asking that means that at some point they're interested, right? Providing the price is reasonable. And we all know how affordable this nutrition is, considering the quality and convenience of it. Like, we know Isagenix is a total steal. So even if in the moment they don't know that, you get to create an experience for them while they wait to say yes. We have to come at it that way. We have to think about it that way. You're not bothering these people. You're creating an experience for them while they wait to say yes. Try that the next time you know you need to follow up with somebody. And we're going to go through some tangible tips here in a second, but try that the next time and just see how your posture changes, see how your confidence changes. Okay, so this whole process, all you're doing is helping people buy stuff they said they want to help them. They may just not be ready to actually commit to it right now, but they want the help. They know you have a solution. They're just not ready. You're just helping them make that decision. That's what follow-ups are. Okay, so some tips and some mindset for effective follow-up. Okay, this is important. So why do we follow up? We follow up because they aren't ready and they need more information. So we get that information from them before disconnecting so we can serve them best. So for instance, if they were to say, oh, I'm not sure this or that, an objection just means that they don't have the information that they need yet. Even if they give you an objection and you're like, oh, that's probably not entirely true, it just means they don't have enough information. So before you disconnect with them, it's so important to say, Cindy, if I get those answers for you, will you be ready to start your transformation? Lori, if I get those answers for you, will you be ready to make this change for yourself? And some of us feel so timid in being so bold with people because health is such a personal journey. But if they were willing to get on the phone with you and share their goals with you, they want you to be bold with them, I promise. Okay, even if they don't express that, even if there's some fear behind it, they want you to be bold with them because they're in pain. They're in pain and they want help. They may just not know it's okay to say yes to themselves. That's what you're helping create that space about. And if they say no to you, say, would it be helpful if I follow up in however amount of time? And we're going to talk about the when in a second. But would it be helpful if I followed up in 3 weeks? Would it be helpful if I followed up in 2 days, whatever that is? And you'll know by the conversation that you're having with them. But I never get off the phone with them until they and I both know what that next step is in the follow-up process. So it's either I'm going to get them some information and then we'll follow up after that, or I'm going to follow up with them in a few weeks because of some objection. Okay, so I'll get to the when in a second. Now, the other thing is you have to be bold. You guys, I just talked about this. You have to be bold because you have a gift and you have to let them open it when they're ready. But you have to be bold enough to hand them the gift. And if they're not ready for it, then you're not going to just like throw it at them and run away. You're not going to set it down. You're going to keep holding on to it until they're ready. Now, this might seem strange to think like, well, how can I do that for every single person? Every single person you meet, imagine there's just like a new you that pops up that's just like in relationship with this person holding the gift. And you're just loving on them and waiting on them. Remember what I talked about before? Gift in one hand, and with the other hand, you're serving. You're serving. And at some point, you're going to know when to bring those together. And maybe it's not the right time. And then you do this again. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing. Okay? So you're serving. And then they bring up pain again, or you feel like it's, the right time to drip on them again. You say, hey, Lori, is this the right time? No? Okay. No big deal. Tell me about this. Tell me about Dale. Tell me about Derek. What's going on in your life? Be in relationship with them. Okay? So back to the feedback a little bit. When fear sets in, that fear of rejection, the fear of bothering, the fear of being annoying, you need a mental trigger to create a new mental habit. Okay, you have to choose it ahead of time so that you're prepared. For me, I love 2 Timothy 1:7. It's my office verse. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I love it so much I call him Timmy. Okay, Timmy and I are like besties. So 2 Timothy 1:7. And it talks about how God did not give us a spirit of fear. We were not born with a spirit of timidity. We were born with a spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. Those 3 things make it possible for you to follow up with people. Okay? Power, love, self-discipline. That's my mental trigger. Whenever I start to feel that fear of like, oh, I don't want to follow up with this person because what are they going to think of me? I think, why am I afraid? There's no reason for me to be afraid because I was born with the spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. And I'm powerful enough to be bold and love this person, and I'm disciplined enough to be consistent. That's the kind of spirit we were born with, and when you step into that, you feel so good, okay? And think about why. Maybe for you, it's like you have to come back to the why. Why are you doing this? Why do they need it? What have they expressed to you in that initial connection, in their goals? Why do they want this? And think about that every single time you reach out to them, whether it's about Isagenix or not. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, that is so important. So when to follow up? So after your presentation, about 10% of people will be ready to get started, And we learned this at University in Action. I love when David Wood goes through the numbers, and he went through the numbers with Cindy too. About 10% of the people you have conversations with will say yes. Okay, now, granted, some of that is after some follow-up, but just for sake of ease, I want you to think about that. 10% of the people that you talk to, for every 10 people you talk to, one will probably be ready. Okay, the rest, the other 90%, that's when you get to flex your follow-up muscle. All right, so I base the time frame on their objection. So for instance, if they say money, like, oh, I don't have the money right now, I say, I totally understand. Always respond with validation. My team is probably like ingrained in their head by now. They're like, oh, what do I say about this? I'm like, validate first. Always, always validate what they said. Because if they have an objection or they have an uncertainty, validate. I totally understand the feeling of like you don't have enough money to reach the goals that you want to reach. That's so discouraging. And then you bring it back to the positive. Thankfully, Isagenix understands that and has created a way for people to get their products paid for. So there's always a way, and you can always show them and give them more information. Okay, but for instance, let's say money. They're like, listen, Rachel, I totally want to get started, but I don't get paid until like the 28th. And I'm like, I totally get it. I totally get it. I totally remember paycheck to paycheck. It's stressful. So I respect that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab your information. And then the 28th, you said, right? Okay. So I'll give it till the 29th because, you know, sometimes checks take a little bit. On the 29th, you text me, I'll text you. And when you're ready, I'm going to submit this for you. That way we don't have to find another time to follow up. Okay. But you know, ask questions, you guys. You know what that time frame is. That's how you know you're going to set the follow-up. Okay. Maybe money is an issue and they're like, oh, I'm not sure because I'll know more when I get my bonus check in like a month. It's like, awesome. Okay. Would it be helpful if I followed up with you in a month? They always say yes. I've never had anyone say no. And then what you do is you take your planner out and you write it down right then. Right then. If you don't have your planner on you, text it to yourself. You have to be so disciplined and focused and make sure you get that information down so you can follow through with your word. Okay, nobody follows through with their word anymore. Like our society is so just about like fast interactions, this, that, and the other. If you are a person of your word, you are refreshing. Okay, if you're a person who says you're going to do something and you actually do it in service of others, that is refreshing. And those are the types of people that we are as a culture. Okay, so maybe timing. Timing is a reason why they're not ready to get started. So what is coming up that they're waiting for? An example is a good friend of mine. I mean, she's a good friend now. I met her on a ferry boat because our kids were playing together. But she just moved up here from California. They opened a restaurant on the west side in the Seattle area. And she reached out to me and she's like, hey, I don't know what it is that you do, but whatever it is I wanted, I got some baby weight to lose. And I'm like, awesome. So we've been connecting back and forth. And she wants to get started at the beginning of July because she has family in town and she's going out of town for like a month. And she's like, I just opened a restaurant. We're leaving to go back to grab a few things. She's like, I can't wrap my head around anything new right now. So please, when I get back in July, I want to start. I'm like, you got it. Okay. So it's like, I know I'm going to follow up with her. I've already committed to that. It's in my planner. So you have to ask those questions to understand what people's objections and timelines are so that you can serve them best. Okay. So always ask questions. Okay. And then maybe talk to the spouse. Whenever I get the people who are like, oh yeah, I need to talk to my spouse. I'm like, great. Realistically, when do you think that, you know, like if it's Della, like Della, I totally understand. You don't want to, you know, invest money in yourself without seeing if your husband would want to do it with you or, you know, seeing like what kind of thoughts he has. Like, I get that. So realistically, when do you think you and Joshua will have about 10 minutes to sit down and chat? She's like, oh, well, he gets home tonight around 8. So probably tonight. I'm like, great. I know sometimes things don't happen. So why don't I follow up with you tomorrow? You know, and in the meantime, if he has any questions, I can send you some information because he may have questions about goals for himself. Do you see what I'm saying? Like she didn't say, oh, I want to see if my husband wants to do it with me. She just said, I need to talk to my spouse. But when you forward speak and you say, I totally get it. You want to chat with him because, I mean, he may want to do it with you. Most husbands end up taking their wives' products anyway if they don't start right away. You know, like you want to make it something where they feel like it's normal and part of the process. Okay, so always validating, always forward speaking. But the talk to the spouse one, as far as when are you going to be able to chat with them? That's when you set your follow-up. Okay, you always set the next step before you disconnect. Because we all know what happens when you disconnect from that person and you're not talking to them on the phone anymore. Crickets, life, busyness. Always set the next step before you disconnect. And then do it. Your word is your bond. It's your integrity. Okay, we talked about that. Let's be a team of integrity. When we say we're going to follow up with somebody, even if you think, oh, they don't actually care if I follow up. But you know what a gift this is. And so what kind of service are you giving them if you're not willing to follow up with them so that they know and they're one step closer to saying yes to themselves? We have to be in service all the time. And again, so write it in your planner. Here, let me lean over here. I'll show you guys my example. So when I know I'm going to follow up with somebody, I'll show you this week. Okay, so my friend Jared, you see that? Okay, so on my planner, I have auto ship, follow up, and send info on every single week so that when I know I need to follow up with somebody on a certain week, I'll go to that week and I'll write their name down. So for instance, this week I need to follow up with my friend Jared because he wants to do another 30-day. And then my friend Dustin, whom I met a few weeks back, wants to get started at the end of the week. So I have that written in there so I don't have to remember it. Because if you just rely on your own brain to try to remember who you're going to follow up with, after about the 5th person you talk to, you're going to forget. Okay, because if you're having enough conversations to be successful like you want to, you should not be able to remember all of them. Some of you are like, oh, it's all in my head. Okay, but that's only going to get you so far. That's not going to get you $1 million success. It won't even probably get you 6-figure success or even less than that. You have to be able to write everything down so you can serve people best. Okay, so that's the when. Now how to follow up. I heard this on a training in one of the groups, and I love it. I don't think there's a way I can share it in Empower to Lead, but if not everyone's in that group, I'm happy to watch it. And I know Amanda's watched it and loved it, and we can definitely retrain on it. But one of the formulas that he gave was questions create conversations, conversations create relationships, relationships lead to opportunities, and opportunities lead to sales. Okay, so I'll say that again. Questions create conversations, which create relationships, which lead to opportunities, which lead to sales. I'm going to put it in the chat too. Okay, I put it in the chat for you guys. So when you're thinking about this formula, you're talking to people. How are you going to know when to follow up with them? Because you're asking questions. Okay? How are you going to stay in relationship with people even when you're following up with them and it's not about Isagenix? You're reaching out, you're validating, you're affirming, you're congratulating, you're asking questions because questions create relationships, or questions create conversations, which create relationships. And that's what we want to do for people. Not every follow-up should be about Isagenix, okay? Because we want to connect with these people, not as robots. We have to trust Isagenix as products, as a company, as a culture enough to know that it sells itself. We have to work on selling ourselves. That's why people buy Isagenix. It's because of us. Okay? They may want it for themselves. They may, have the money. They may all these things. But you are going to be the catalyst. You are going to be the person that looks them in the eye or speaks into their heart, however you connect with them, and really be able to help them understand that they are worth it. Okay, because not very many people are sitting at home thinking, I need Isagenix in my life right now. I'm going to reach out on Facebook, see who sells Isagenix, and I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to start with a value pack today. That is not a thing, you guys. So we have to be that bridge. And so we really have to work on creating those relationships. That's why we're so important. So again, follow-up is about creating a habit of loving people more. I heard this at the Most Powerful Men in Network Marketing event, and I loved it. It's like every time you follow up, you're creating an experience for them, and you're building a habit of loving them more. So again, am I bothering them? Am I annoying them? Am I going to get rejected? Wipe that from your brain. You have to wipe it from your brain immediately. I want to serve this person. I want to love on this person. I want to be a friend to this person. Okay? That's how you're approaching them. And it will work. You guys will feel so much better. It will relieve so much pressure, so much weirdness. Okay? If you're just authentic and you're coming at them as someone who just cares about them, it makes a world of difference. So some examples of some non-Isagenix follow-up. So you could comment on someone's post. Anytime I comment on someone's post and I know they're really interested in Isagenix and I really want to continue that relationship with them, I will comment on their post. If it's something kind of big, I always follow up with a message. So for instance, I have a gal who just announced that they're having their 3rd baby. They have twin girls and they're moving out of their house. They just sold their house. They just bought a new one. And I reached out to her. I was like, oh my gosh, Kristen, like, I'm so excited for you that you guys bought a new house in Gig Harbor. Like, that's awesome. I'm so surprised because your other house, I know how much you loved it. And she wrote back, she's like, we haven't told anybody yet, but we're expecting a third baby and we won't have room in our house. And it was like, all because I commented on a post where she's like, sold our house. And I was like, oh, yay, that's awesome. That's not creating a relationship. Yes, it's making her more active in my newsfeed, but that's not actually building a relationship. So I always follow up a comment on a big post, not if they're just like, oh, I had broccoli for lunch. Not really something I'd message about. But if they're like, hey, I just sold my house, that's huge. Follow up with a message, create that conversation. From that conversation with her, I was talking to her, I was like, I can't believe it. Like, you're a busy nurse, mom of soon to be 3, you're pregnant. Like, girl, you are like rocking it out. I was like, and I just got done celebrating a mutual friend of ours in this Healthy Lifestyle Facebook group of ours. I'd love to add you to it. She's like, yeah, please. And now she's totally interested, all because I commented on a house post and I reached out to her in a message. Okay, so that extra slight edge, that extra little step really goes a long way in creating relationships. Okay, another example of a non-Isagenix follow-up would be something like reaching out, like, hey, Jenny, I have not seen you in forever. I know Jenny and I don't live in the same city, but it's like, we live 15 minutes from each other. We never see each other. I want to buy you coffee this week. Like, I want to hear all about what's going on with you, with Brian, with the kids. Like, tell me everything. I want to buy you coffee. I don't know a single person that's going to turn down a free drink. Okay. I always put coffee or tea because I don't drink coffee and maybe other people don't either. But it's like, I'd love to like meet you at a bakery and buy you a snack or whatever. And let's walk around the park. Make it fun. Don't be weird. Just like put it out there boldly. Like, hey, this is what I want to do with you. If you're like, hey, let's get together. No one's going to really have the mental capacity to wrap their head around planning all of that. If you come at people with a plan and you're genuine about wanting to spend time with them, they will want to do that with you. Okay. And don't even bring up Isagenix. Go into it just wanting to hear genuinely about them. I cannot even tell you, it might even be 100%. If not, it's like 99% of people who are like on the fence are really excited about Isagenix, but it's not the right time. When I do spend time with them, they always bring it up. Always. Okay? You don't even have to bring it up. Just be a human. Just love on them on a human level. And then something else, bringing someone a meal or a drink. Like Jeff met this mom because he works on houses and they just moved here. And we ended up getting our kids together. And on my way over, I was just like, hey, I'd love to grab you a coffee. I'm over at Wake Up Call. Can I bring you something? Like, just extending a little bit of an effort, to go that extra mile to show people you really care about them. And because you don't have an agenda, guys, right? Our agenda is to build a connection because we know that our agenda is to build a relationship because we know from a relationship that will lead to an opportunity to bless them with Isagenix. Okay? So just relationships first. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. I think that's Amanda's favorite training she's ever had in Isagenix is don't be weird. And every time I think about it, I think of her. Okay, so some examples of some Isagenix follow-ups. So when they have questions, so you're talking to them in that initial connection or in one of your follow-ups, if they have more questions, you say, oh my gosh, Lori, I have the perfect tool for you. Don't say tool because they don't know what that is, but like, I have the perfect podcast for you, the perfect article, the perfect video. Oh my gosh, you will so relate to Jill Birth's story. Lori doesn't, but like somebody does. I will so relate to Jill Birth's story. You have got to see her video. I will send it to you. And then you ask, when will you realistically have 5 minutes to watch it? And then they say, oh, probably Friday. I have Friday off. It's like, great. I'm free Friday around 3. Can I call you then? Or would that be a good time or whatever? Like, set the appointment. So if they're like, oh, I'm just not sure. Like, do people really lose 100 pounds on this? It's like, do they? Oh my gosh. You have got to see this video. When will you have about 5 minutes to watch it? Okay. So you're always, again, setting the appointment before you hop off the call. Set the next appointment before you disconnect. Okay. So if they're ready, but they need to wait for some funds, like money's kind of thing. We talked about this earlier, but I was like, okay, when is payday so I can make sure to set aside time for you? I like to use that verbiage because I want people to know that my time is valuable. So I want to set some aside for them, but I also want them to understand that they're valuable. Okay. I want to set aside time for you. So you tell me, when is payday? Oh, it's on the 1st. Great. I will love to talk to you on the 1st. I always grab all their information because if they're really ready, it's like, let me grab your info. That way on the 1st, we can connect. And, if anything changes with like the flavors you want or whatever, but that way you just give me the word and you will start your journey. Everything you say is about serving them. Okay. So let's say where am I here? Okay, so kind of a pro tip with this, like some verbiage. So if you're asking, like they're saying, okay, money's tight, but I can do it on this day, you grab the info. Still continue to get the account information as if you're enrolling, but wait until that day to submit it, obviously. This is a service we're doing for them, so you could say something like this. Next Thursday is perfect. Let's take a few minutes to pick out your flavors and grab some info so we don't have to try to find another time to chat next week. So you say the word and I'll set it up for you. Do you want chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? Like you just go right into it. Okay, because and this is only if they've already said, yes, I really want to do this, but man, money's tight. It's like, I totally get it. Okay, let's help you out. Let's like streamline this process for you. If they're still like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I think I want to do it. Don't push it with them, guys. You don't want to shut them out. But if they're excited, grab their info because life will happen. And that money that they've budgeted for that or that they're going to set aside for that, if it's not already ingrained, like, oh, my account's ready to go, I just got to give the word, that money will go somewhere else that it doesn't really need to go to because emergencies happen and it just seems so much worse in the moment than it really is. And we know people's health is so foundational. Okay, so do this as a service to them. Now, if you keep getting the same objections from people over and over again, in your follow-ups, this is some verbiage I heard at the Most Powerful Women in Network Marketing event, and it's so bold. Even for me, I consider myself pretty bold. I was a little like, oh my gosh, would I say that to someone? And I've used it, and it's amazing. It relieves so much pressure and tension from the relationship. So if you're getting the same objections from somebody over and over again, and you're like, okay, you say you want this, but do you really? Here's what you can say. So, Jenny, are you just being polite because you don't want to say no to me, or do you really, and then, insert the objection, or do you like, is money really that tight, or do you just feel weird like saying no to me because I really want to help you, but it just feels like it's like maybe you're not ready to commit or whatever, like you tell me. And by just even being able to say that, like, are you just being polite, or do you really, like, is this really an issue? But say it in a way that's so loving, because here's the thing, if somebody wants to say no, but they just don't want to actually have to say no, think of the relief you're giving them by saying, hey, here's the door. Okay, because you don't want someone stringing you along. They don't want to string you along, but they're just too uncertain, or they're just too polite to just say no to you. I think it's more polite to open the door for them to walk out and just say, I know this probably isn't the right time for you, so would it be helpful if I followed up in a few months? Oh my gosh, you guys, it saves so much time for both parties, because if they really don't want it, you do not want to be following up with them every time they're like, oh, maybe on Thursday, and then you call Thursday and they don't answer. And then they text you 2 days later, oh, sorry, whatever came up, how about Sunday? And then they don't answer. No, because here's the other thing it will do. Maybe they really want it, but once they realize that you're like, kind of like, okay, this or this, what is it? They're way more likely to say, no, you're right, I'm sorry. Like, I had a girl do this a couple weeks ago. She was like, I know, I'm sorry. Like, I'm totally not trying to be a flake. I'm coming over tomorrow. We're getting this done. And we did. Okay. It was just the right kind of energy that I needed to exchange. It's so helpful. Okay. The other one that I heard at this event that was really cool was, if you know someone's really struggling with their health, but we know, right, when they're just not ready to say yes to themselves. If you know that's the case, I love this verbiage. Okay. So Amanda, either you can, and then insert current habit, like maybe, I'm trying to, who's on the call, an example I can use of somebody. Okay, I'm just going to go. So you can say something like, okay, so Mama Della, either you can continue to blank, 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 the current habit that she's expressed to me. Remember, you're not putting words in people's mouths. She's expressed to me some habits she wants to get rid of. So, okay, Mama Della, you can either continue to, insert habit, or you can really grab a hold of your health and blank, fill in their goals. Okay. So either you can current habit they want to break, or you can insert goal. I will support you and I'm here to help you. What do you want to do? That boldness, again, it allows them to make a decision for themselves. Okay. So I will put this verbiage in the chat too, because I see some people trying to write it out. See, typing my notes out is so much easier for everybody. There you go. Okay. All right, so those are some tips on following up with people. All right. Now, a lot of people will ask things like, okay, how often should I follow up? You'll know if there's not like a science. It's not like you follow up with every single person every 3 months. Some people maybe, but the majority of people, you're going to know what their timeline is. And that's why it's so important to have a system to be able to track your follow-ups. So if somebody is like a money issue or timing or spouse or whatever that looks like, you ask them the questions, like, okay, if it's money, when realistically will you be ready to invest in yourself? Not when you're going to have the money. That sounds so tacky, right? When realistically will you be able to invest in yourself? Or when realistically would you be willing to invest in yourself? Verbiage is everything, you guys. Wording is so important. And so being able to ask those questions, you will always know when to follow up with that person based on their circumstance. So it's not the same for everybody. I wish it was, and then we could just like give you some streamlined process, but it's not. But again, this is what makes it so beautiful, because it's an industry of relationships, which means it's going to be fluid. It's going to depend on the person, and that's what keeps us interested, right? Keeps it interesting. Okay, so remember the couple pro tips, really important. Always set the follow-up appointment before disconnecting. Have I said it enough times yet? Always, always. Okay? And then go into every follow-up asking yourself how you can serve that person as a human being, not a sale, because it will relieve so much pressure from you as you connect with them. And that's what we want to do. Every follow-up is a connection. And if you really want to feel like you're serving that person, you have to be willing to tell yourself something different than I'm being annoying, I'm bothering them, I'm going to be rejected. Those need to leave your mind. And as soon as they enter, have something on hand that you can tell yourself instead. Feel free to use mine. If you love Jesus like I do, bust open your Bible, 2 Timothy 1:7. I love that verse. And anytime I feel afraid, I stop and I'm like, nope, I am powerful, I am loving, and I am self-disciplined. I'm going to reach out to this person. What's the worst that can happen? Right? They're either not ready or they are. But if we're complicating it beyond that, then we really have to get a hold of things. Otherwise, you guys, you're just not going to get through this plateau in your business. And I know so many of you, because I've been there too. You're like, you have this momentum and then you just feel stalled. Even if you're doing the same things over and over again, but nothing's changing. Okay, you have to be able to make these adjustments, and it starts up here, right? Okay, so before we close out, I want to hear, like, has anything come up for you guys as far as like when you have those mental triggers of, I don't want to follow up, like your fears of following up because of rejection or because of being annoying or you're being bothersome? What are some of the things you heard tonight that were helpful in you being able to overcome that? Go ahead and put them in the chat. And then also, if you have any questions, go through this again, because I want to make sure our content is done. That's the content I wanted to share with you, but now I want to make sure that we're getting the information from you guys. Any questions that you have? Yes, Lori, perfect. Lori is saying, thinking about how she can serve them. Perfect. Lori, can I unmute you? Because I'd like you to, can you just talk about that for a second? Go ahead, Lori.
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. I probably used to be weird about the follow-up and think, oh, I don't want to bother people. And then even when I got past the idea of bothering people, I would still kind of feel like not sure what to say, you're not sure how to approach this, but coming from that heart of how can this be of service to them? How can I be of service to them? And either it is about Isagenix or it's not, but that's based on what would be best for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because would you guys agree that anytime you're weird, it's because you're thinking about yourself? You're thinking about how they're going to react to you. You're thinking about how you're going to come across. So anytime you feel like you're being weird, this would be a good mental trigger for me. For some of you, it may not work this way, but like anytime I feel like I'm being weird, I'm like, okay, I'm being selfish. If I feel like I'm being weird about something, I'm being selfish, and I do not want to be selfish. So that snaps me out of it real fast. Telling myself to use my full potential. All right, Mama Della, I'm unmuting you. I want to hear more about that.
Well, I've been reading The Big Leap.
Yeah.
Because I'll think about, following up and contacting people, but then I'll talk myself out of it. I talk myself, off that ledge, and I have to stay on that ledge. I've got to go over it. I've got to step it. And so I set myself up just that today was my day. I was not going to back out. I was not going to go on the hike with the rest of the family. I was going to stay here, and it was going to be my day to work. And so I just set my mental state as that for the last 3 days. Anytime it came into my mind of, not doing what I knew I needed to do, I just would go back to, no, I need to reach my full potential. I don't want that glass ceiling. If I need to change, if I want things to change.
Absolutely.
And so today I made 16 contacts.
Awesome.
And I need somebody to do a call with me tomorrow at 10.
I love it. Okay, you guys, this is why I have you share, because how many people feel like they're not reaching their full potential? Okay, and how many people understand that it's you holding you back? It's not, Isagenix is not holding you back. Following up is not holding you back. You are holding you back. Okay, so that's why it's so important to share these things, because exactly like Lori said, and exactly like Mama Della said, these are things that everybody is struggling with. So anytime you feel like so down on yourself or so, oh my gosh, can I do this? Let's be honest. We'll have an honest moment here. And I'm glad this is being recorded, because I hope the people who watch this recording, whoever's watching, I hope you feel like you are included in this conversation, because everybody struggles with this. How many people realistically in the last month have even had a glimpsing thought of quitting? Okay. Everyone but the millionaire. That's a clue right there. That's a clue. A glimpsing thought, you guys. It's something, even if it comes into your head, like when it comes into my head, I'm immediately like, ew, gross. I'm not quitting. But it's still, the enemy's in there, you guys. It's like, and what does that come from? It comes from a million different things that we're not doing. It comes from not being in action. It comes from not being authentic in what we say we're going to do and following through with it. All those things that even if we just kind of like bat it off, like, oh, okay, one time I didn't follow up with someone, or okay, one time I hoped they wouldn't pick up the phone and they didn't, or whatever it is. One time is all it takes to not be in integrity. Okay, that might sound intense to some of you, but that's how I live my life. One time is all it takes to not be in integrity. So you have to think about that, because that one time here and that one time here, it adds up. And before you know it, you have a fleeting thought in your head. And for some of us, we're not mentally strong enough to just fight it off. But that's what personal growth is. And it's so important to acknowledge that. Everyone on the phone raised their hand except Cindy. And I know Cindy has a thought on that I can see, because she stopped what she was doing in her kitchen and she's ready. Hold on, Cindy. Almost. But you guys, it's so important that you understand you are not alone. Anytime you have that thought, and if it's in your head for more than 5 seconds, I am demanding that you reach out to somebody, anyone on this team, anyone's face you recognize, and say, okay, having that crazy glimpse of a thought that I want to quit. I'm not going to, but it's just there. And allow that person to love on you and say, oh yeah, me too. And then I got over it and now I'm awesome. And then I enrolled somebody, right? That's how it works. You push through the stuff that sucks, and before you know it, something awesome happens. Every time. Every single time. Okay, Cindy, throw your wisdom on us.
Well, guys, I mean, that's pretty telling. And I appreciate everybody's honesty. And I mean, so many things immediately rush into my head, and even in my own experience, it is not easy. This is not an easy business. This is a simple business, but it's not an easy business. And guys, if it was, everyone would do it, and you wouldn't have as much potential with it if everyone was doing it. So it really is a process. It's a personal growth journey. But what I want to encourage you is, in anything that you're going to do in life, there's going to be aspects of that thing that you don't like. There's just going to be things that you don't like. I mean, for anybody that's online right now tonight, how many of you guys are working a job or even being a mom and at home, and there are just aspects every single day that you have to do things that you don't like? How many? Yeah. I mean, it is life. It's life. We've got to learn to do the hard things, just like in working out. It's the resistance that builds the muscle. It's that resistance that builds your strength. And it's the follow through that will build your character, and will build your resilience and give you opportunities. And, I mean, people, there's just, not everybody's going to do Isagenix. I mean, Isagenix is for everyone, but not everyone's going to do Isagenix. So you just need to know that in your head. It's okay. And like Rachel said, the biggest part of this business really, and one of the biggest blessings, is that it encourages us and compels us to build relationships in our lives. In our society today, too many people get too isolated. We're so isolated. Everything's on social media. We do the same things every day. I say this to Gretchen all the time. People always do what they know. They do what they know. And so we're constantly asking people to break out of what they know and do something new. But in doing that, you're going to create a life that's rich in experiences and relationships. And it will just be amazing. And I mean, there were so many like little things that, that came to mind as you were going through everything, Rachel. And I just want to say a couple of them. This weekend, we just got back from Top Achievers. And next year, you guys have to be there with us because it is the best event of the year. It really is. The training was off the charts. And the guy that trained, we got David Wood day 2, and he was phenomenal, as you can imagine. But day 1, we had a guy that trained on a book, his best-selling book. It's called Everything Counts. Everything Counts. Talking about all the little things. All the little things matter. And in life really is a series of all the little things. And so just being a good friend, being a person that naturally adds value to people's lives, being someone that is a servant-hearted leader, that we're going out to add value, to give, to serve, to lead people into a healthy, mindful, rich life full of experiences, great health, and great opportunities. That's what Isagenix offers. And you start that just by building relationships. And so one of the things that is, today in our market, social media is such a big deal. And I see that in my own life. I'm a one-on-one person. I'm an in-the-moment, in-person person, but it makes my reach and impact limited. But Isagenix and social media, it's like it maximizes your reach and impact. So if you can, like Laura Stevens, said last summer, and then again, it was so apparent again this weekend that, to really build your life, have a lot of fun with Facebook, have a lot of fun with Instagram and Snapchat and social media, and live your life in a really fun way so that when you're connecting with people, you're just legitimately out meeting people, talking to them, getting to know them, Facebook friending them. Like Rachel's saying, go in, keep a list of your top 20 people, your top 20 prospects or people that you're really excited about maybe introducing the opportunity to. Keep a list of that in your day timer. So every single day, every couple days, you can go into their wall and start connecting on some of their posts and start to bring that relationship, because then your lifestyle is going to start to pop up in their feed. And so it's more like attraction marketing than you going out to get people. Isn't it easier if somebody comes to you, Rachel, and says, Rachel, I've been watching what you're doing on social media. I don't totally get what it is, but I'd love to have more information about it. I'd love to know more about it. That's, oh my gosh, of course, Susie, I would love to share that with you. We are having a blast. Of course, I would love to have you be part of it. Let's set a time that we can connect and I'll get some information to you or whatever. And then the follow-up is, just like Rachel said, you circle back and add value to people. Give them a great article, give them a great podcast, just see where they're at and respect that. The other thing that she said, I like this, feel, felt, found. Susie, I totally understand how you feel. I felt like we couldn't even afford to do it when we first started too. But what I found was blah, 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 that kind of thing. So have a few of those things in mind. The other thing that add value, genuine interest, care for the person, attraction marketing, feel, felt, found, assume the close. Just like Rachel, of course they're going to want to do it. Who's not going to want to lean up 20 pounds, look and feel amazing in their body, sleep better, have better energy every day? That needs to be instilled in your mind. And if you feel like you're wavering in your product experience, then tighten things up. Do a tight 9-day. Give yourself a new story. Give yourself another reason to go, wow, after 11 years, and I'm almost turning 53, I weigh what I did as a college cheerleader at 20. That's a compelling story to women my age. They're like, what? I'm like, I know. I think I found the fountain of youth. You totally have to check it out. People will take a look. So you got to come up with a compelling story, something that's exciting, but it needs to be authentic and genuinely where you're at. So if you feel like you're wavering yourself, tighten things up and get yourself a new story and do that. So anyway, Rach, those are the things that came to mind.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you guys, like Cindy said, thank you for being so honest with that feedback, because I think sometimes it's hard to admit that we're not mentally, like our mental fortitude isn't on point all the time, but that's not realistic. And again, if we're not being authentic with ourselves and with each other, this is a safe space. I know it's recording, but it's still safe. But this is a safe place to be truly who you are. And if we can't be that here, how are you going to be that with other people? So being able to admit the things that frighten you, being able to admit that like you have a glimpsing thought of wanting to quit. No one on here is going to think less of you, because I guarantee you when Cindy was in our shoes, making the money that we're making, doing the grind like we're doing, it's different. I mean, same stuff, but obviously different need for her now than it was when she was starting 10 years ago. So I can tell you with certainty, without even having to ask her, that those glimpsing thoughts were more for her too at that time. I'm sure Cindy thought about quitting all the time. And that's a future call, you guys. We'll get into that. But
no, but I want to tell you this. That I want you to think about it, just like you'll say to your people who are like, well, I don't know with the dieting thing. Say, if not this, then what? That was what was in my mind, because sometimes it was really, really hard. And we are going to do a call on that. And it would have been really easy. And everybody could have understood if I would have laid it down and walked away from it, because our lives were crazy, insane, what we were dealing with. But I felt compelled to keep moving forward. And I know you girls feel the same way too. All of you listening tonight, you feel compelled. Stay true to that. It takes time. It takes time, but it will be worth it. It's worth the sacrifice. And when you get on the other side of it, it's the most amazing freedom that you will ever have in your life.
Amen.
So
All right, you guys. So we've had you for an hour. We're still recording, babe. Hi. No worries. It's cool. It's real life. Can you say hi? Who are all these people on the mommy's computer? All right, you guys. Follow up. Truly, like everything that we teach you is so important. All the essentials are so important. But when you know that most people will say yes because you have followed up with them 5 or more times, like go out and follow up with people and just expect that you're going to follow up with them for the next 100 years. That's what I think of when I think of people that don't say yes on the first interaction. I'm like, okay, you got me for 100 more years. I don't know what that's going to look like because it's different for every person, but you have to just know that in your head, because if you don't, you think, okay, like I'll follow up with them this one more time and see. You guys are missing it. I think about in the beginning when I wasn't following up consistently, how many people are just out there that I just left floundering, still praying for something. Wow, I'm a jerk. Okay? Don't be a jerk. Go follow up with people. There you go. There's your trigger. There's your motto. So there you go. Lori, 2 of her 3 enrollments this week were gals she followed up with for a year. That is huge. Okay? True testament to the follow-up. So hope you guys got a lot of great notes, a lot of good content. The team challenge this week, okay? The team challenge this week is following up. So track your follow-ups. Whether or not they result in an enrollment, doesn't matter. Even if you follow up with the same person more than once in the next week, each follow-up counts, because as we know, it's more than one. Okay, just plan on that. It's going to be more than one. Just plan on it being like 100 times, whatever. But every follow-up that you have with somebody, I want you to track who it is and what the follow-up was about. I'm going to grab him. Sorry. Caleb's feeling left out. So you're going to track what the follow-up was about. So for instance, say you're like, oh, okay, awesome. I'm going to follow up with Amanda. And when I follow up with Amanda this one time, she was super interested because I sent her this cool article from Isagenix Health, the tool you shared, and when your next follow-up is. So name, what the follow-up was about, a tool shared or whatever, and then if it didn't result in an enrollment, when's the next follow-up? Okay, so that's what you're going to track for every single person. Email it to Empowered to Lead. 2 is the number 2, and then points, highest points, same as every week. You guys are doing great. So send in your follow-ups, and then we're only going to have 1 more week before we do grand prize. Oh, exciting. Okay, so we'll have more information on that in a little bit, like in the next few days. Cindy and I are going to meet on Thursday and talk more details about everything. But can you guys believe we've been doing this Essential series for 7 weeks already? It's been fun. I hope you guys are having fun too. Okay, all right, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording. Everyone who's watching the recording, wave. Hello, bye-bye. We love you.